The battle between Yoriichi and Muzan was epic, or more like a single-sided spanking by Yoriichi. Whatever the case may be, this encounter has had Muzan pissing his pants for centuries. But what if all this never happened? What if Muzan and Yoriichi work together? Will Yoriichi ignore his morals for Muzan? Let's find out. It's the Sengoku period, and the Tsugikuni household is blessed with twins, but the priest of the family considers it a bad omen and informs his master, who proceeds to kill one of the twins with a weird birthmark on his head. But the twins' mother protests, keeping her life on the line, and they come to a treaty where the father spares the life of the other child, but orders him to leave for a temple to become a priest once he's old enough. The boy grows up seemingly deaf from birth, garnering the pity of his mother and older twin brother. But one day the same boy picks up a sword for the first time and strikes down a seasoned swordsman multiple times at a misguided attempt to answer his calling. The boy is none other than Yoriichi himself. Years pass, and Yoriichi finally departs from the temple after his mother's death. The sun sets, and along the way, Yoriichi encounters a strange man beside the road. He slowly treads toward the man and realizes that he's no man, but a demon. Yoriichi gets petrified, and the bag holding all his belongings hits the floor as Yoriichi goes for a rock nearby. The demon leaves the man and attracts Yoriichi instead. However, Yoriichi throws the rock at the demon's foot with all his might, making the demon tumble. The demon tries to crawl towards his name while continuously muttering the name of a woman. Suddenly, a swordsman appears out of the bushes and beheads the demon. The swordsman explains that the poor man's soul must be suffering due to resisting the transformation, as he still had memories from his human life. As the demon starts turning into ashes, Yoriichi lets out a prayer, just like his mother, to the sun god, asking him to forgive the man. This was Yoriichi's first encounter with a demon. However, his heart bore no hatred towards them, rather a sense of deep pity and remorse. The swordsman turns to walk away, instructing the boy to stay indoors during the night. But the blank eyes of Yoriichi stare right through the swordsman's chest, making him a bit uncomfortable. As the swordsman, aka the demon slayer, starts walking, Yoriichi declares that the man must get his chest checked by a healer, as he suffered multiple fractures in his ribs. The swordsman turns back in awe and asks the kid how he knows that, knowing full well that he was hit there earlier while chasing the demon. Yoriichi replies earnestly that he could see through objects and human beings. The slayer is shocked and further inquires if that is the reason why the boy chose to trip the demon rather than fight him. Yoriichi replies in a plain yes. The slayer further inquires about Yoriichi's past, and knowing full well that he has no one to look after him, takes Yoriichi under his wing as his apprentice. This slayer is revealed to be Renjuro Rengoku, an ancestor of the Rengoku family with the same perky hair. Renjuro takes him to the then Demon Slayer Corps headquarters and introduces him to the other Demon Slayers. Renjuro then goes on to explain the importance of his job to Yoriichi and how the world would be overrun by demons if the Slayers weren't there to protect the people. Yoriichi is quiet as usual, but he clearly sees a horde of people behind the paper walls talking about his sudden appearance. The other Demon Slayers are still hesitant to accept the young prodigy. However, Renjuro has his utmost faith in him. Years pass, and Yoriichi grows up in the Rengoku household, developing his sun breathing like in the original story, and passing it on to the fellow Slayers who adapt to it in their own elemental ways. Soon the time for Yoriichi's first mission arrives, and he's sent to a town far away, where a demon is supposedly coordinating his attacks to kill wealthy people. Yoriichi reaches the town and realizes that it's the same place where he grew up. Suddenly, the convoy of a rich landlord arrives at the scene, and Yoriichi senses a null demon presence. He looks around with his transparent vision and notices that the demon is himself in the crowd. As Yoriichi notices the demon, it rushes towards the man sitting in the handheld carriage in order to kill him. However, Yoriichi cuts him down immediately. As the carriage falls over, it is revealed that the wealthy man traveling in it was none other than Michikatsu, Yoriichi's brother. Michikatsu looks up at his forsaken brother with a frown of awe and disappointment as he sheaths his sword. Later, Yoriichi explains his condition to Michikatsu, and upon hearing that, he decides to leave his family behind and learn the breaths to become a demon slayer himself. Michikatsu too joins the Demon Slayer Corps. However, he is unable to learn the breath of the sun, and hence has to rely on using a mock breathing technique known as the breath of the moon. Time passes, and the brothers are dispatched to take care of a situation in a nearby town, where multiple killings by a ghost-like entity were reported by the locals. The brothers reach the location and encounter the ghost, which is a demon as they suspected. Moments before the Tsugikuni brothers unsheath their swords and rush in to kill the demon, he cries for help. This throws off both the brothers as they try to contemplate the situation in their minds. The demon cries out loud, explaining that he isn't doing this by choice and that he's actually being controlled by an even more ferocious man, the one who turned him into a demon. Yoriichi uses his transparent world to take a look at the man's insides and notices a below-average physique with no power to boast. Yoriichi decides to hunt for the stronger demon, believing him to be the progenitor of demons, while Michikatsu stays behind to slay the demon in case he's lying to escape. Yoriichi reaches the specified location at the shrine, tries to use his transparent world ability. However, the foul stench of a certain incense and the pitch-black darkness hinder his attempts. Suddenly, an unknown being rushes towards Yoriichi, and he cuts it down immediately. As Yoriichi's eyes adjust to the darkness, he witnesses a horror like none other. Yoriichi realizes that the unknown thing he cut down was actually a human hostage that the demon was saving for later. In an absolutely vexed state, Yoriichi rushes back to Michikatsu, fearing for his life. As he reaches the spot, he finds it to be empty. But suddenly, a severed hand, like Enmu's, reveals itself and talks to Yoriichi. The hand reveals that the demon they spared earlier was none other than Muzan himself, who altered his body's chemistry to look like that of a low-level demon. Muzan knew about Yoriichi's capabilities right from the day he met Renjuro and killed the demon he created. The hand lays down the conditions for Yoriichi as follows. If he wants to see his brother alive and well, he must get him the head of the Oyakata-sama of the demon slayers within a week at the same shrine he cut down the innocent human. Yoriichi dashes towards the hand. However, it vanishes into thin air even before Yoriichi could land a single blow. Torn between his duty and his love for Michikatsu, Yoriichi reaches the headquarters of the demon slayers. He meets Renjuro and sits in front of him, uttering no words for several minutes. Renjuro gets worried and asks him what actually transpired during the mission and where Michikatsu is. Yoriichi retells everything that happened during the mission, which makes Renjuro really concerned. Renjuro gets up and declares that it's time he finally met the leader. Yoriichi looks at Renjuro with a concerned look as he follows him. They sit down and wait for the leader to appear. However, after waiting for several minutes, a timid boy no older than 4 years appears hanging onto his mother's clothes. Yoriichi is shocked to find out that the leader passed away at the age of 23, leaving behind his only son, and that all the members of the Ubuyashiki household suffer from a horrible curse that makes their lives regrettably short and painful to live through. Renjuro, however, gets up and grabs his sword. Suddenly, he unsheaths his sword and impales himself in an act of seppuku. Yoriichi is shocked and immediately rushes to Renjuro's aid. Renjuro explains that he was the one who dragged an innocent child into this painful world, and that this is the only thing he could give in return to Yoriichi as atonement for his brother's capture. He then goes on to explain that he must take his head instead of the young master's to free his brother, as he slumbers in eternal sleep due to blood loss. Yoriichi lets out a tear as a man who was no less than a father to him and dies in his arms due to a mistake he made. Yoriichi reaches the same shrine after a week, only to find no one there. Suddenly, a voice echoes in the halls, stating that his brother would be released after he rolls the head of the leader towards the statue of Buddha. As soon as Yoriichi rolls the head wrapped in a cloth towards the statue, strikes of distorted air hit the bag, revealing that it's just a bunch of rolled up clothes. Yoriichi grabs his sword and takes a fighting pose, stating that the demon will meet his end tonight. Suddenly, a few strikes are let loose from right behind Yoriichi, which he easily dodges. But as soon as Yoriichi turns and identifies the man behind those strikes, he goes into a state of shock. The ambusher turns out to be none other than Michikatsu, his brother, who's been turned into a demon. Yoriichi, in a concerned voice, asks for Muzan to show himself, as the former declares that Muzan will die for what he did to his brother. But as Yoriichi stops, Michikatsu slowly utters, "Michikatsu was my human name. Call me Kokushibo." A frown of worry climbs up Yoriichi's face as he takes another look at his brother. Kokushibo then goes on to state that Muzan has nothing to do with this and that he accepted the life of a demon on his own accord. Kokushibo explains that the moment he saw him again that night, slaying the demon, he knew that he'd never be enough, never be capable of standing shoulder to shoulder with his brother, never be enough to be his equal. That's why, when he was approached by Muzan months ago, he accepted his offer to become a demon, as he was going to die anyway after the age of 25 due to the demon slayer mark. Yoriichi's life flashes before his eyes as he recalls all the moments spent fighting alongside his brother, but as he clears his mind and dashes towards Kokushibo to kill him, a whip-like thing almost hits him in the ankle, but he manages to avoid it at the last moment. Muzan too reveals himself as the two demons prepare to take down Yoriichi for good.